Good afternoon. My name is David Butler, Head of Sustainable Food Systems Ireland, and you're very welcome to today's event, Dairying in East Africa, Opportunities for Sustainable and Climate Resilient Dairy Farm Systems. We're delighted to host this event on World Milk Day in association with IFIAD, the Irish Forum for International Agricultural Development. It's also Madaraka Day, so one of Kenya's national independence days. So congratulations to our Kenyan colleagues and participants today. For sub-Saharan Africa, dairy production has huge potential to improve farm household income, food security, and contribute to overall rural development and prosperity. Cow's milk accounts for around 80% of total milk consumed, and around half of that comes from East Africa. So the region plays a hugely important role in the sector. However, despite substantial growth in recent years, the dairy sector in Africa faces major issues such as low yields and high cost of production. Dairying locally is still not meeting demand, and in some cases 50% or less of consumption comes from locally sourced milk, with imports making up the balance. Throughout sub-Saharan Africa, dairy yields in smallholder farms are affected by low quality and insufficient animal nutrition, disease burdens, management, and other issues. Genetic improvement has not been widely implemented despite the import of high merit breeds into Africa, largely due to the lack of well-defined breeding goals and strategies, limited pedigree and performance data recording, lack of skills, and inadequate infrastructure. Challenges in the value chain also hinder progress in terms of dairy productivity and the performance of the sector. For instance, inadequate access to markets, cold chain problems, and the dominance of informal markets, which lead to significant price volatility and hinder long-term relationships between dairy farmers and processors. Other issues like land tenure, land conflict, and obstacles for women who play a huge role in the dairy sector in East Africa can also impact on system performance. On top of these, of course, the effects of climate change bring uncertainty and impacts in relation to feed costs, yields, and impact of climate disasters and climate risk into the future. Now, to talk to us about some of the more interesting initiatives to address these challenges and realize the opportunities for dairying in East Africa, we have three speakers today to talk to us about a range of dairy research and development programs, development projects in two countries, Kenya and Tanzania. We will have opportunities for questions and answers at the end of the presentation, so I'd encourage participants to use the chat function to post questions. Our three speakers are Dr. Amos Omore, is the ILRI country representative and principal scientist on CGIAR livestock research in Tanzania. He's also the ILRI representative in Southern and Eastern Africa. Neema Mrema is the Agresults Tanzania team leader at Land O'Lakes Venture 37, an experienced value chain specialist working with both Tanzanian agribusinesses and smallholders. And third, we have David Mbugua, a socioeconomist and policy specialist with KALRO, the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization's Dairy Research Institute in Naivasha, and somebody who's also closely involved with the Dairy Kenya project that SFSI, together with Chagask, with lead implementation by Chagask, was involved in creating and implementing. So with that, I'm going to hand over first of all to Dr. Amos to tell us more about ILRI activities in relation to this sector in Tanzania and East Africa. Over to you, Dr. Amos.
Thanks a lot, David. Thanks for the invitation to be part of this webinar. I've titled my presentation Better Lives Through Livestock, ILRI in East Africa, with a focus on dairy. Yeah, if I may use that, I think that's better. So what I will do is present two examples of ongoing dairy projects within the 15 minutes allotted. The first one is on integrated research for value chain development, actually building on funding from Irish Aid among other bilateral donors from about 8, 9 or so years ago. The second one will be on genetics research, mainly focusing on genetics delivery research. And then we'll share with you some lessons that we are learning so far with regard to research for development in East Africa, particularly focusing on research for value chain development. But before then, let me introduce the organization that I work for and why we focus on dairy. Now, ILRI is the International Livestock Research Institute in full, works for better lives through livestock in developing countries. It is one of 15 CGIAR research centers dedicated to reducing poverty, enhancing food and nutrition security, and improving natural resources and ecosystem services. Its research is carried out in close collaboration with hundreds of partners, including national and regional research institutes, civil society organizations, and academia, development organizations, and the private sector. This map illustrates the countries where we are present. ILRI is hosted in 2 major campuses. We headquarters in Kenya, but another major campus in Ethiopia. But we're also present in 14 other countries in Africa. In East Africa, we have offices and country projects in Burundi, Tanzania, Uganda, and we have about 700 staff, 40% of which are female, and a wide range of skill sets, you know, from the technical areas of like animal nutrition to the social sciences, as well as gender specialists and capacity development experts. Now, the range of research that ILRI is engaged in spreads across many areas, ranging from the technical areas, such as increasing production and access to animal source foods, and including dairy, stimulating economic development and poverty reduction through enhanced livestock value chains and increased productivity, improving animal health through improved access to animal source foods, and a reduction in the burden of zoonotic and foodborne diseases, and managing the adaptation of livestock systems to climate change and mitigation of the impact of livestock on the environment. The research is delivered mostly through a multi-center livestock CGIAR research program called the CGIAR Research Program on Livestock, and piloting in priority countries, Tanzania being one of them. And I'll talk about these a little bit later. That work is organized around 5 flagships as reflected there, generally mimicking the sort of areas that ILRI is also organized around. But in this particular partnership, we've got other CGIAR centers such as SIAT actively contributing to the work that we do here in Tanzania, because they specialize on feeds and forages. Now, why do we focus on dairy? David has highlighted some of those. Is because of the great opportunity that there is. I mean, if you look at the projected growth in demand for milk to 2030, this is, you know, estimates done using the impact model that was developed by IFPRI and working closely with our scientists on the livestock side. You see that projected growth in demand for milk in sub-Saharan Africa is relatively high compared to high-income countries where it appears to have stabilized. And on the right-hand side, you look at the projected growth of milk compared to other livestock products. And you can see there's generally going to be a doubling over 20 years, that is from 2010 to 2030. The main, now, per capita consumption is still pretty low, and given the strong demand that is being driven by population growth, income growth, and urbanization, those will be the main factors that will drive increases in demand for milk. Now still pretty low at about 45 kilograms per capita per year, compared to over 200 kilograms in many high-income countries. Now, for us, this is presents the opportunity to transform smallholder livestock systems for better lives, nourishment, health, income, employment, and such benefits. If demand is not met locally, then people will still need milk, and that gap will be filled with imports, with reduced benefits. So hence the reason we focus on trying to unleash the dairy potential for the benefit of actors in the value chain, particularly smallholder livestock keepers, but consumers as well, because of the benefits of milk for nourishment. Now, to do this, we need more investments, and I'm happy that IFIAD is thinking of investing more in the dairy sector in Tanzania. Just to give an example of what of the difference that increased investment makes, take the example of Kenya and Rwanda, for example, where it is said national statistics show that the dairy sector contributes to about 6 to 8% of the GDP. And this is attributed to many years of investments in dairy, both research and development. In Rwanda, for example, you remember the Gerinka program that championed by the president there to ensure that every poor household has a cow. And that has raised the contribution of the dairy sector to the economy of Rwanda tremendously, from perhaps near zero around the time of the genocide to around 6, 7, or 8% at present. Now compare this to Tanzania, that has got perhaps one of, has got not perhaps, but actually got the largest, one of the largest livestock assets in Africa. I think second or third in terms of cattle populations in the whole continent. The dairy sector is still pretty small and contributes only 1.5% of GDP. And this can be attributed to the history of low investments despite vast land and animal resources. There was a publication that was produced by FAO and the National Bureau of Statistics in Tanzania a while back that showed that the 20% of livestock keepers using extension services earn 3 times than those who do not. So this shows you, the area where most intervention is needed is in providing more inputs and services. Hence the reason the work that we do at ILRI and with partners, both national and international, focus on catalyzing investments, both public and private. This is a major focus of our work, besides engagement in helping the various countries to plan for more investments in the livestock sector generally. For example, in Tanzania, we worked very closely with the Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries Development to facilitate the development of the Tanzania Livestock Master Plan that has got projections over 15 years and is directly embedded in the current ongoing agricultural sector development plan. The key issues to address for us is strengthening the private sector, particularly to encourage participation of smallholders in markets, catalyzing rural commercialization. So those involved in the value chain, small scale actors, agrovet shops, that provide various inputs and services, and integrating scale-ready innovations, because single solutions, there are no silver bullets. Single solutions will only work so far. So integrating combinations of solutions we see as the way to better achieve our aims. Now, let me go to the two examples that I alluded to earlier on. The first one is what we call Maziwa Zaidi, stands for more milk. And the current phase of the project focuses directly on the key actors in the value chain, small scale dairy value chain, to encourage entrepreneurship as an entry point for increasing technology uptake and inclusive dairy development in Tanzania. As I said before, it builds on work that was partially funded by ILRI a while back, and working with a range of partners, national partners, as well as NGOs such as Solidaridad, and has got an ongoing project in Tanga. SMV as well has just been engaging significantly in northern Tanzania. There's also Land O'Lakes as well that is embarking on the project on the dairy nourishing Africa, with Tanzania as a major focus. Now, as I said, the focus for us is how to get investors to replicate and catalyze an inclusive and sustainable dairy value chain. Of course, towards increased productivity and income consumption. The project envisions achieving these by first having smallholder dairy farmers encouraging smallholder dairy farmers or assisting them to access or have reliable and consistent access to quality inputs and services that enable them to efficiently achieve high dairy productivity. Secondly, to have access to inclusive, reliable, well-coordinated and efficient dairy product market arrangements and resultant improvement in household income and livelihoods. The third aim is directed at consumers to ensure that poor consumers can access quality, safe and nutritious dairy products at affordable prices. This would be reflected in the increase in per capita consumption from the current 45 kilograms of milk per person per year. An important indicator along the change pathway is having investors, be they government or be they external, taking up the recommendations from the research to replicate through more investments the interventions that have been shown to contribute to these aims. As shown in this particular slide, you can see some of the key changes that we are driving at. Entry point, as I've indicated, being increased agribusiness performance, but also addressing issues related to improved enabling business environment, working closely with particularly the Ministry of Livestock on that particular element. And on the strategy side, is more capacity building of agri-businesses involved in the value chain. The way we do this is, as I've said, is about integrating the various proven technologies that come from research or elsewhere, be they genetics, feeds or health, environment, as well as gender factors, and appropriate business models that encourage uptake of these technologies, and working with various partners, as I've mentioned earlier on, to push the uptake of these technologies by farmers and through value chain actors who hopefully are able to profitably leverage the technologies. We had an interactive sessions with value chain actors that identified the priority technologies that they would like to pick up. The technical products that were identified for the delivery packages were brachiaria grass or any other forage options This list just highlights the main ones that people are most interested in, given the range of technologies that were presented. East Coast fever vaccination, AI, particularly leveraging on the ADGG platform, and I'll talk a little bit that shortly, as well as manure management. We also done scaling scan with an overlapping set of stakeholders to set ambitions, pathways, critical factors, challenges, and potential solutions. Being a research organization, we are focusing on the research elements, and this is driven by key assumptions. The main ones being that the integrated technology packages contribute to increased productivity, income, and consumption of safe milk. The key questions under that would be ourselves, which integrated technology packages deliver more impacts on productivity, sustainability, incomes, and consumption of more milk, as well as another question on under what conditions can approaches, this relates to the assumption there on incubation or mentorship of agripreneurs contribute to improve business performance. So looking at the what conditions, and conditions here includes incentives, policy, and institutional enablers that enhance uptake of integrated technology packages. And whether following incubation, mentorship and or coaching could assist them to crowd in more efficient agribusinesses that lead to more competitive smallholder dairy farmers. And then the third one, the last one there, is on inclusivity. And we want to find out under what conditions can women and youth-led agribusinesses enhance inclusivity for other women, men, and young actors in the dairy value chain.
Amos, we're gone over 15 minutes now.
Okay, let me just round off. This is give me another 2 minutes and I'll be done. There is the work goes. This design is kind of typical clinical trial, before, after, with, without, and there's some overlap with the Agresults work in Tanga region, and we have agreed to do some co-evaluation together. Now, the last example here is the African dairy genetics gain with a range of partners that has expanded over the years from a few to now quite a number, and beyond Tanzania and Ethiopia to now include other countries in the region. Now, as you all know, herd recording is the basis of improvement of production efficiency in many countries, but there's low uptake in developing countries. So the question then is, how can we indigenize herd recording and feedback for national and farmer decision-making in these settings? So this project is focusing on testing use of our farm records for genetic and genomic evaluation to identify crossbred dairy cattle for AI and plant natural mating. As you're aware, ordinarily we import, genetics from other countries, and those are not always proven to be appropriate in local settings. Private sector farm is involved in ensuring that there is email messages via mobile phones. As you can see, the photograph there at the bottom reflects the first animal parade that was done in Tanzania with the minister presiding. That was also replicated virtually in Ethiopia this year. The graph at the top there shows you the kind of gaps that need to be filled. You can see only 2% of farmers are able to attain the kind of yields of milk that you find in Ireland, for example. Majority are producing only about 5 kilograms of milk per day. This shows the achievements of the ADGG project so far. As you can see, there are a number of over 1 million first day milk records, the number of 10,000 animals sampled for genetic evaluation. There's 21 million SMS messages and the like. I've inserted their landing page that you will find in that website that's listed there, showing the data collection points in Tanzania, for example. This project is now driving towards country ownership of the breeding programs and promoting the highly ranked bulls. A number of lessons, I will not go through them, as you are just putting this here to show that we focus quite a bit of our publishing on development-oriented research and agribusiness-oriented research, but also the technical areas as well. The key lessons that we are deriving from the work we've done so far is that linkages starting with forming new farmer groups are slow in terms of the process to catalyze rapid value chain upgrading. You need significant public investments that the private sector can profitably leverage. Linking agripreneurs, focusing on agripreneurs is a more promising entry point for promoting sustainable technology uptake, and we are focusing on proving this further. And structured skills training of youth and women with appropriate content will quicken inclusive scaling process, and ICT provides significant new opportunities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Amos. That's excellent. With our tight timing today, what I'm going to do is go straight on to the next speaker, and I hope you'll stay with us. And at the end, if we can return to maybe a quick question or two, we will do so. So moving on to our second speaker, Neema Mrema is Agresults team leader in Tanzania, a project implemented by Land O'Lakes Venture 37. This is a dairy productivity challenge project, so very closely related to what Amos was speaking about, and a pay for results project that aims to strengthen the ability of smallholder farmers to increase dairy productivity. Neema, if you're there, over to you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank David for the good introduction and the Amos presentation. Actually, it's like a foundation for my presentation. So for the interest of time and the bandwidth where I am, I'm going to switch off my video and then proceed with the presentation. So next slide, please. So today I'll be going through the outline for the presentation. I just have to give a brief background of Venture 37 and go through the Agresults structure and explain a little bit about the project and share some of the results which we have attained for the ending SARS period 1 of this project. Next slide, please. Land O'Lakes Venture 37. It's affiliated with Land O'Lakes Inc., and which is a farmer-owned cooperative and Fortune 200 company with nearly 100 years of experience, farm-to-fork experience in dairy, animal feed, and crop protections. And they currently have 19 projects in 13 countries, Tanzania being one of them. Currently, Tanzania is implementing 2 projects. So for all our programs, Land O'Lakes Venture 37 leverage expertise and innovations and technology from the Land O'Lakes Inc., diversified agribusinesses, and overseas investments. So our own emphasis on crops, livestock, dairy, and sustainable solutions mirror Land O'Lakes' own 4 major business units, which are Purina, Animal Nutrition, Winfield Unit Crop Protection, Tutera, Climate Smart Agriculture Solution, and the Land O'Lakes Dairy Products. We do have our Land O'Lakes have overseas investments, which include Forage Genetics International and Villa Crops in South Africa. Venture 37 leverage Land O'Lakes technical bench of more than 10,000 employees across the enterprise to inform, design, and we provide technical assistance to the projects we implement. And as you could see, there are several areas: access to finance, input, extension services, research and innovation, ag technology, processing and storage. All these in totality, we do have expertise from the Land Olex Inc. technical bench, and we do provide support on the ongoing projects currently globally. Next slide, please. So I just want to go through the Agresults structure so that you know who is who on the structure. Next slide. So we do have there are 5, it's kind of a basket fund. There are 5 donor agencies which have put money together to support the Agresults initiative. And you do have like 4 governments: Australia, UK, US, and Canada, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They form a steering committee, and the representative from each donor agency sits on the steering committee. And we do have financial trustee, which is World Bank, managing all the funds. And they are responsible for strategic oversight of the initiative, including making decisions and also approving stages of new projects, design stages of new projects, but also even modification of the design as well, and the monitoring of the projects and the initiative as a whole. So we do have also the Agresults Secretariat on the structure. That one is currently managed by Deloitte in DC. And these ones are responsible for day-to-day management of the Agresults projects globally, communication among the project implementers, as well as the steering committee, but also selecting, contracting, and oversee the project managers and verify, and also for the design of the new projects. We do have also independent evaluator, because there is a separate evaluation for this. It's not building on the project management. And this one, we do have 2 organizations, IFIAD Associates and ID Insights. And this one, they are responsible for measuring the impact of the project. And for the Agresults Tanzania Dairy Productivity Project, IFIAD Associates are responsible to measure the impact and also compare the traditional push and on grant-based approaches. We have the Venture 37 now as the project manager managing the Tanzania project, and we do have PricewaterhouseCoopers Tanzania. These are independent verifier for verifying the activities, specifically the sale of inputs to smallholder farmers, as we'll talk about on the next slide. Verify all the sales and looking at the incentive, and also looking at the eligibility for these input businesses to provide the incentive. So we do have the award recipients or implementing organization. Now these are the input businesses, mostly referring them as competitors. These are the ones now who are implementing the projects. They're the ones who are providing services to smallholder farmers and address some of the challenges the smallholder farmers are encountering along the chain, but specifically on the animal health and nutrition. Next slide, please. So I just want now to talk about the Agresults productivity next. And next slide. I just want to give a daily snapshot. I think Amos have talked a little bit on the research perspective, but I want also to share the key areas in terms of how we view the dairy sector. And this one has helped to build in the Agresults Dairy Productivity Challenge project. So the dairy sector, we've seen, is a very good contributor to the country economy, even though it has several challenges that affect its effectiveness. And if you look at the 7.1% of GDP contribution by livestock, 30% is being come from the dairy sector. There is a big volume of milk really produced, but this one comes from indigenous cattle, and these one have characteristics of low milk yield, and just the remainder really coming from improved breed. So we account for like 2.1 billion liters. It's come from indigenous, and 0.1 billion from improved breed. But we've seen some increase in production of recent. So in the year 20, in the statistics which data obtained from 2019-2020, there is an increase of 12% on production. However, with this increase, 90% is being consumed at the farm level, and it's only 90% of that production is collected through collection center for processing. So the country record about 99 processing units with only 91 active, and the living 8 which is inactive, but these one operate below rated capacity. So because of this gap, this led to the country to import about 24 million liters of milk mostly from Kenya and Uganda to supplement demand for the processed milk. So there is a huge opportunity to transform the sector should country embark to sustainable intervention that are inclusive. Just to mention a few, we have seen there's a need to improve animal health and hygiene through promotion of parasite control, vaccination, and use of proper nutrition to cows. Also, the purposeful extension services is necessary to enhance farmers' understanding on the importance of good husbandry for cost-effective dairy farming. The other area, promotion of artificial insemination, services is necessary for breed improvement. And the last is enabling environment to allow market access at all levels, which is very necessary. Next slide, please. So just give a brief overview of now the project itself. So the Tanzania Dairy Productivity Challenge project has been designed to provide solutions, which I mentioned earlier on my previous slide, on the problem identified during the scoping. So among other, the problems which identify of importance for this project were high percentage of low yield breeds and the poor forage management that lead to poor access and utilization, fluctuation on feed supply, and inability of smallholder farmers to access input and extension services. And the project encouraged input suppliers to provide smallholder farmers with input bundles to boost productivity and strengthen the dairy value chain. So we see that if the farmer are, being adopted the effective use of input bundles, this one will result to an increase in dairy productivity and income from smallholder farmers, strengthen value chain relationships between smallholder farmers and the formal dairy sector. So the project, as you could see, is implemented in 4 regions in the coastal area: Tanga, Dar es Salaam, Pwani, and Morogoro. And one will wonder why the coastal area? But there are 3 main factors which considered during the selection. And the first one is demand for milk. There's a huge demand, high market demand for milk in Dar es Salaam, and it is easily accessible. Even you find that even the processors who are far end of in the southern highland Dar es Salaam, 1,000 kilometers, 6,600 kilometers from there, they do bring their milk to sell to Dar es Salaam. There is already developed infrastructure like collection centers with cooling facilities and good road network, but also there is a well-sized input business base that will not be easily exhausted before the last sales period ends. Next slide, please. So the project aimed to increase dairy productivity among smallholder farmers, increase smallholder farmers' income from dairy production, and to strengthen value chain relationships between smallholder dairy producers and the formal dairy sector. All of this will be accomplished by offering price incentives for each bundle of productivity increasing input, with high incentive for more productive inputs and a mandatory requirement to provide extension services. I'll talk a little bit more on that on this next slide. So as you could see, that's a project overview and how really we anticipate once this is being implemented. We hope to see that there is improved animal productivity and farmer livelihood, and also increased market formalizations. And the people who really are the people who are working towards to make this happen are input businesses. And once the project ends, the impact which we hope to see is increased additional 23 million liters of milk, but also farmers increase the additional revenue of $9.4 million, but also the input the input businesses revenue increased by 4.1 to 4.1 million, and also at least targeting 22% of farmers in those selected region. Next slide, please. So the dairy productivity projects, as I said, it's addressed some of the challenges, but the way it's addressed it is through competition. And this competition has different stages, but the input businesses are competing against themselves, not against each other. And they're competing against the odds of doing business, refining their business model, and providing solutions to smallholder farmer needs. And the most important thing is to see how are they going to improve adoption of using productivity, increasing input by smallholder farmers, and have farmers realize the outcomes comes with the use of those inputs. So on the annual basis, Agresults will provide the prices for the provision of productivity increasing dairy input to smallholder farmers. So the competitor who are referred to as input business develop set of input bundles from a menu of options. So there are different options, input options. We have parasite control, that is anthelmintics and acaricides. We do have nutrition, and we are promoting the pasture and supplements, minerals, standard dairy milk. Vaccine, and this vaccine has 7 vaccines which are promoting: lumpy skin, East Coast fever, CBVP, brucellosis, blackleg, anthrax, to mention the few, and also artificial insemination, where we are promoting conventional and sex semen. And these inputs must be sold in bundles. For example, for input businesses is supposed to sell a year amount for the acaricide and the anthelmintics, and this depending on the weight and the size of the animal in terms of acaricide, but also for the anthelmintics, those routine anthelmintics per farmer per cow is supposed to be provided, and this one will become eligible to receive a parasite control cash price. And this cash price are ranging from $5 to $27 based on the difficulty of the bundle and the number of bundles sold. For example, if a competitor sells more than 1 bundle, they will receive a bonus. And this will be 20% over and above the cash price they have of those specific bundles. And if they are selling, for example, 2 bundles, they'll receive 40% bonus. And 3 bundles, and 4 bundles, they'll receive 60% bonus. So, however, bundles will only be considered eligible for a price if the competitor also provide extension services to the farmers that they sell the input to. So the cash prices will decrease in the 3rd year and the 4th year to encourage long-term sustainability. Next slide, please. So as I said earlier, I really want to share with you some of the results we have obtained for the sales period 1. This sales period 1 is commenced last year, July 17th, and ended this year, 16th April 2021. And from the 6 competitors who were selected for the sales period 1, they've managed to reach 2,776 farmers, over and above 1,000 farmers we are projected for the first sales period. And we are happy to say that 30% of them were women. And these ones were registered and received different input bundles. And from those, the competitor managed to sold 7,990 different input transactions: vaccine, parasite control, nutrition, and AI. And this one had really led to 4,858 complete input bundle. And you could see if it's a vaccine, vaccine of 4,080. For vaccine, the competitor is supposed to sell at least 2 vaccines per cow. And for the nutrition, the competitor is supposed to sell at least 657 kg of hay and a minimum of 100 milligrams of minerals. And for example, for AI, it's supposed at least to have 75% conception rate and also have a complete bundle. So if you look at the at this graph here, I really want to talk a little bit on the graph.
Neema, it's over 15 minutes.
Yes.
Good
Yeah, I'm wrapping up. So with these results which you've obtained here, we have seen we have almost 759 farmers who have really complete bundles, and you have really seen that they have contributed really to, they have improved on their dairy production. Next slide. So the Agresults really project has major contribution really on the sector, and we have seen that it's working to address some of the challenges that the dairy sector is facing, as I said on my dairy snapshot slide. And this one include the input promoted by the project contributes to implementation of policy intervention areas for improved livestock development. The nutrition bundle that promotes use of forage and supplementation contribute to improvement on quality and quantity of feed resources. Improvement on quality and quantity of animal health services, as well as access by smallholder farmers, contributed by promotion of effective use of parasite control and vaccination. And also the AI contribute to changing the genetic composition geared to improve dairy productivity. And on top of them, all the mandatory extension services help farmers to get a better understanding of the input bundles sold and led to adoption. Thank you. I think the next slide is just the end slide. Thank you very much. You're on mute, David.
Thank you. In the interest of time, apologies. Thank you very much. We will continue on to the next speaker, and there are some questions coming in, so I think we'll return to questions at the very end. So our third speaker is David Mbugua from KALRO in Kenya. David is, as well as being a socioeconomist and policy specialist, he's also innovation manager on our very own Dairy Kenya project, which focuses on supporting KALRO in its role, in particular in relation to innovation and innovation management in the dairy sector in Kenya. Over to you, David.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I'm David from KALRO DRI. I'm making a presentation on behalf of a team from KALRO. And today is Self-Independence Day. We call it Madaraka Day in Kenya. I'm going to give a brief about what KALRO is as an organization, Dairy Research Institute, which is one of the institutes at KALRO, and the Kenya Dairy Project. So I'll give a background about KALRO, our institute, and what the thrusts are in research. And I want to give this project as a case study, the Kenya Dairy Project. Next slide. So about KALRO, this is one of the premier agricultural organizations in the country that all came into being in 2013, that's about 7 years ago. But we had other organizations and institutes like Kenya Agricultural Research Institute, abbreviated as KARI. We had Coffee Research Institute and Coffee Research Institute, and also Sugar. All these were amalgamated in 2013 to develop now the organization we are calling KALRO. So we have two broader goals. We are looking at research in crops, livestock, genetic resources, and also biotechnology in Kenya, promoting it, streamlining, and coordinating all that goes into research activities. We are also trying to look at how to best provide research information, the resources and technologies that can be utilized out there in the field in order for us to improve on agricultural performance in the country. Next. So with that in mind, we have 4 strategic objectives that guides our operations. One is to look at how to generate and promote technologies and innovations that are demand driven, both for crops as well as livestock. And I think our colleagues out there, Omore and Neema, mentioned about technologies that are important. So is the case with KALRO. We want to look at all those technologies that can be utilized, innovations, and also management practices that go with these value chains. The second objective we are looking at is to develop and promote markets and market strategies for those value chains. Because we have realized that with very good productivity, very good performance in terms of technologies, without effective markets, then that becomes a discouragement to the value chain actors, especially our producers. The other objective we are looking at is to facilitate and advocate for policy changes where need be, our policy enhancement, so that the produce from the different value chains can help in increasing productivity and also getting the end users to to relate better with these value chains. And then lastly, a lot of information and knowledge has been generated through research and with our partners, and we need to share this information and also the technologies that can enhance the productivity and the performance of the value chains, both in crops as well as livestock. Next slide. So after discussing the strategic objectives, let us look at now KALRO. This organization has about 16 institutes, and you'll find that these institutes are like commodity-based institutes, and they are spread across the entire country. And from the 16 institutes, you find that Dairy Research Institute, which is given there as number 7, where I come from, is one of the institutes that dealing with dairy cattle, is dealing with camels, and is also looking at dairy goats in terms of milk production. All the other institutes are, as I said, are commodity-based, and looking at even their title can tell you exactly what commodities they are looking at. Next slide. So some of the technologies that KALRO as an organization has come up with over time, I want to give just as examples because there are many, and for sake of time, I cannot discuss all of them in this webinar. In livestock germplasm multiplication, which is one of the major constraints that we have in this country, in indigenous chicken, we have now developed what we are calling a KALRO improved chicken. From chicken from many areas. We have looked at several genotypes and the ecotypes across the country. We have selected them and bred them. And what we can now report as of now is that we have now this improved chicken that can do 8 eggs, from 8 eggs to 100, which is common with the local birds. This has doubled now with our birds to 200 to 250. This, of course, means greater productivity for chicken farmers. And when you look at the egg size, the improved birds have about 30% increase from the local chicken. Farmers are very interested about the age to the first egg. And with our improved birds, we find that this has reduced from 8 months to 5 months. And the age where farmers can sell the birds at 2 kilos has reduced from 8 months to 4 months. Of course, that means business for the farmers. The other germplasm that we are proud of is about the Frisian Sahiwal cross. This is a cross between the Frisians and the Sahiwals. The Sahiwals are hardy, Frisians are known for high milk production. So this breed has been shown to have moderate milk production, and also the hardiness of the Sahiwal animal. It's in very high demand in the country. The other, we have been working on the Sahiwal cattle, which is an improved zebu. It is quite resilient and it does not require a lot of supplementation in feeding. It can do well in areas that we call semi-arid and arid areas in the country. These, we have germplasm for these livestock, and we have semen, and also we sell live animals as bulls for our animals across the country, especially in the semi-arid environment, which comprise about 80% of Kenya. Next slide. So the other area that we can talk about is about fodder germplasm, because nutrition, as Omore has mentioned, is one of the limiting issues in terms of dairy. And we have looked at, with our partners like ILRI, coming up with technologies in fodder germplasm that can tolerate especially 2 diseases. And in Kenya, napier grass is one of the fodder of choice for smallholder setups, so about less than 5 hectares. So it is one of the principal grasses that supporting dairy in the country, but it has two problems. One is a head smut disease, especially in the highlands, and also the stunting disease in other regions of the country. So we have come up with several varieties of napier grass that are tolerant to the two diseases and widespread in this country. The other area is looking at interaction between legumes and grasses, just to improve on the protein content of the feeds that animals take. And here as an example, we are demonstrating through a project I'm going to be discussing just in a few seconds about about napier and desmodium as an intercrop to support dairying at a smallholder setups. The other that I think Omore has mentioned also, and Neema, is about bracharia grass. And KALRO has come up with 4 varieties through research that has gone through national performance trials and have now been commercialized and released to be used in the country. And these 4 varieties include Xylus, Piata, MG4, and Basilic. Next slide. We have also been looking at vaccines development in KALRO to support chicken. One of the major devastating diseases is Newcastle disease. And we now have a thermostable vaccine that does not require the cold chain. And it's also packaged in small doses that smallholder farmers can use. We also have developed a vaccine against the East Coast fever, one of the devastating diseases in the region. And this is now being commercialized and being used. We have also been looking at development of the vaccines like Capri pox. And we have seen that we have now developed a vaccine that can protect sheep against this disease. Now, mastitis is one of the diseases of concern in every dairy farm. And farmers in Kenya have been this problem of mastitis. We have developed now mastitis test kit that is quite simple to use by farmers and even to milk traders, whereby it utilizes paper strips that are impregnated with the indicators that can detect when you have clinical and subclinical status of mastitis. Lastly, there is also a problem of mastitis in camels. And because there is an aspect of the population, especially in young people, utilizing milk that is raw and therefore predisposing them to many problems, we have seen the need to come up with a camel mastitis vaccine. In relation to the fact that camels are reared in areas where there is also challenges of water and therefore hygiene becomes a problem. So this is why the essence of us developing the vaccine has come in. Next slide. The Dairy Research Institute, where I now come from, and I see that our mandate is looking at dairy cattle, looking at dairy camels, and also dairy goats. Our mandate is to develop several technologies, innovations, and management practices that are going to enhance productivity and competitiveness of the dairy industry for the sake of the people that rely on dairy in this country. So we have looked at the constraints within the dairy value chain in the country, and I think some of them have been mentioned by Amos about dairy germplasm. Having replacement stock is a problem to many dairy farmers. Having the right pastures and fodder to support nutrition of dairy cattle, and the art of the mixing, that is getting the right combination of feeds to support high productivity of milk. And also we realize that farmers also have a crop and also livestock and amongst other value chains that they may have. Therefore, that whole essence of farming systems that incorporate not only crops, but also livestock is something. And also, we're also looking at economics in our thrust. So therefore, we generate technologies, we generate innovations and management practices that support and help in terms of overcoming some of these challenges. And we have a vision to see a very competitive dairy industry that is going to improve the quality of life through promotion of technologies, innovation, and management practices in dairy. Next. We are also anchored in the Big Four agenda in this country, that is in Kenya, whereby the 4 agenda that has been put a lot of emphasis is in food and nutrition security. We are looking at manufacturing, making sure this country grows to the next level of development, where we have universal health for everybody and where we can have affordable housing. So that is on Big Four. And we are also anchored on Vision 2030 that talks about increase in productivity in the dairy value chain that is going to enhance economic stability of all the households that engage in this. Of course, it has to be informed by science, innovation, and technologies. So we have crafted our thematic areas alongside these two blueprints, the Big Four Agenda and Vision 2030. In productivity, food, nutrition, and security, we are looking at germplasm improvement, as I've mentioned. We're also looking at the issue of forages that can support dairy. We are looking at how farmers can make their own rations and therefore reduce on the cost of milk production in the country, and how to integrate the farming systems. And the pillar on manufacturing, Dairy Research Institute is backstopping farmer cooperatives that are doing milk processing and doing value addition to increase on the milk prices. And they are also supporting this small and medium-term enterprises that are in feed formulation and compounding, and trying to get to assist them in terms of technical backstopping of what they need to do, and also laboratory analysis of samples and also the finished products. We are at the universal health. It is not lost on us that one of the problems that we have in livestock feeding is contaminants in feeds. And the chief one is about mycotoxins, especially in dairy feeds. Therefore, we have anchored our research activities to look at how to reduce on contamination of our feeds, both in raw materials that are used in feed compounding, as well as the finished products that is given to livestock. And we hope that by doing this in the One Health concept, therefore you're going to have more milk that is hygienic for people, and also that has less contaminants to warrant any problems in health. And from
David, sorry, that 15 minutes.
Yes, improvement shortly, yeah. Yes, improvement in production, improvement in terms of the health, and more income. Therefore, we feel that our household can afford even better housing. Next slide. So we don't work alone. We work with ILRI partners, and I'm happy to report that in this forum, you can see that we're working with ILRI Shade Sustainable Food System of Ireland, South Africa, TIGAS, amongst many other organizations. Next slide. Next slide. Yes, I want to give in brief about this project that is Climate Smart, recent innovation in livestock development focus in Kenya. And this is with the help of many organizations that we work with, Embassy of Ireland, we are having TIGAS and SHI, Greenfield, and South Africa. And it's one of the flagship projects that we are having in dairy that is going to help us a lot in addressing some of the problems that I have highlighted. Next slide. So in this project, Omore has mentioned to us about some of the problems that we have in the dairy sector and how it is characterized, raw input and low output systems, where production is about 4 to 8 liters. Our current herd population is about 3 to 4 million cattle, comprised of Frisians, Ashers, Jerseys, Sahiwas, and their crosses. And we find that milk production now stands around 6 billion, and with about 60% from grade animals. The rest comes from the local animals, the camels, and the goats. And dairy is very important in terms of employment, in terms of food and security in the country. And we're very happy about these partnerships with Ireland and Kenya in agri-food strategy, where the dairy sector has been identified as one of the value chains. And this is quite consistent with our blueprint documents that I've discussed earlier. Next slide. We have the goal of contributing knowledge and farm practice in creation of an implementation of innovative, climate smart, and economic production system in this country. And the theory of change that we are embracing in this project is that we want to see and improve the dairy farm systems where animals that are known to better utilize their forages become like our flagship. This is going to lead to better production and profitability because of reduction in terms of the inputs that you use in dairy production. Next slide. So we have 3 objectives that guide us. One is to develop a new cattle breeding program that is going to focus on which breeds can best use forages. 2, we're also looking at how we can meet the animal dietary requirement of 90%, very little concentrates in our animals. And also we want to use what you're calling an innovation hub that is going to have all actors within the dairy value chain supporting us. Next slide. So the project hypotheses are two. One, we want to select animals based on their ability to utilize forages on farm. And we also, the second hypothesis is how we can involve farmers and other actors within the value chain so that they can categorize adoption of improved practices. And this is going to increase profitability on the farm. Next slide. We are working in 2 counties in Kenya. We are working in Nakuru and Nyandarua counties, and we are targeting 200 farmers from 5 areas that we are working in. Next slide. So this work is structured in work packages, and I'm going to discuss this in the next slide. Next slide. Yes, the first work package is about comparison of different breeds and strains. Yes, when animals are managed on pasture, on fodder. We have 4 breeds that we have selected. Holstein Friesians, we have Friesian Sahiwal cross, we have the Sahiwal, and we have the Jersey. And then these animals are managed at a field graze condition with little supplementation. We have a management protocol that we are using, and we are now comparing the breeds in terms of the data that we are receiving in terms of milk production, health, and also reproduction. Next. The other work package is about development of an economic breeding index in Kenya, and we have looked at how Ireland developed their breeding index and what parameters were in use. We are also looking at this in terms of yield. We have looked at stakeholders and what they require in Kenya, milk yield, health of the animals, survivability, also growth and fertility rates, as well as ease of calving. And we are now developing the values that we are going to use in development of the economic breeding index for the Kenyan context. Next. In the second objective, we are looking at forage production, and we have a small unit at KALRO DRI in Naivasha, or about 0.8 hectares that mimics the smallholder setup in the country, where we are growing forages, and we have about 5 forages that we are working with. We have sorghum, we have Napier desmodium, we have Rusan, and we have also sweet potato vines. And we have put 4 animals at a 0 grazing condition. The picture on the right at the bottom you can see, which are put at a 0 grazing on cut and carry system. This is quite popular in the country, especially in the smallholder setups. And we are correcting data in terms of milk yield. We are looking at data in terms of intake. We're also looking at health, reproduction, and other factors because we want to compute the profitability at a certain setup. Next slide. We are also demonstrating about forage production and conservation strategies with our farmers out there. And we are working on a station in DRI that is in Naivasha. We're also working in 2 other nodes out there to demonstrate how these forages can be grown and how we can also conserve them in terms of silage, in terms of haylage, and we're also doing experimental trials. Of course, farmers are trained about how to cultivate these forages, how to manage them, and how to do conservation as pictures show. Next slide.
David, I'm going to interrupt you there if you don't mind. Can you give us 60 seconds as a wrap up if you don't mind? Because we're
thank you. I'll try that. You can call it maybe 1.5 minutes, David.
Please, yeah.
And we have an innovation hub, and here what you are doing is that we have got farmers out there, and we are linking with them through our research activities, and we expect to see that these farmers adopt these technologies that you're talking about. Next slide. So next slide. Yes, this just shows about the same concept about forages in the farms, and we are implementing a capacity building program where we are training farmers based on what we have seen as skill gaps. We have identified technical manuals that we have developed, next slide, that we're using in their training. And we have developed 11 manuals and 10 information brochures. These have been validated by stakeholders and seen that very key in training. Next slide. We have done the trainings out there. We have trained extension staff that are going to help us in passing the information, and also that is 7 lead farmers. Next slide. So we are also having sensitization activity and visibility through the media and also through platforms within the 2 counties we're intervening. Next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, the lessons that we have learned in this project. Kindly, the lessons that we have learned in this project. One is that training of extension staff and lead farmers is quite crucial in accelerating the adoption of these technologies you are mentioning, and also embracing virtual meetings with our stakeholders in trying to see how the project is going. We have also seen, because of the climate change, there is need for careful selection of the forages where we are growing them out there in the fields. And also the farmers' knowledge and participation is quite critical in this forage development. And also we are trying to encourage engagement of value chain actors so that they can also help us in terms of accelerating the information flow. Thank you very much. I think that is what I would like to share for now. Over to you, David.
Thank you, David. David, your enthusiasm is very, very clear, and you could continue on talking about it, I'm sure, but we are limited in time. We'll be happy to answer any questions specifically on the Dairy Kenya project as we have more information. I wanted to return to some of the questions that we've received in on the chat box, and a number of them were directed to Amos, and he has been answering them on the chat box as well. So what we might do is copy all of these and make them available subsequently. But I have one which, and it is reflected in a couple of questions that came in, particularly from Chris Somerville as well, which was the importance, Amos, of agri-entrepreneurship in the project, firstly in Maziwa Zaide and clearly in Neema's description of Agresults. The agri-entrepreneurship in the private sector plays a huge role there, and clearly is a mechanism for scaling out, scaling up. And Chris asks a question about the significant public investment required in your recommendations also to support the private sector. Can you give us a little bit more just on your efforts to influence public sector funding and prioritization in Tanzania using the results you've achieved to date, if you wouldn't mind?
Right, yeah.
You're muted.
Particularly here. Am I still muted? Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I think the main engagement that has or is resulting in significant or some new investments is our work on facilitating the development of the Tanzania Livestock Master Plan. A number of both public and private investors who have recently come into Tanzania have cited relying on the projections within that Livestock Master Plan that in turn also relied significantly on empirical data that we have generated in recent years. So if you look, for example, there was some effort led by some NGOs here that engaged in livestock advocacy, and one outcome was to get the local governments to double the allocation that to the livestock sector. Traditionally, they collect taxes at the local level, but this was, and a significant part of that was invested in various areas, but very little, a very low proportion was invested in the livestock sector. And that was, I think, can be partly attributed to the indication that the livestock sector needs a lot more investment and was not being invested in at the local level. You might also, new investments, including by IFIAD and by Dairy Nourishing Africa, that is led by Land O'Lakes here when they were scoping, indicated that yes, the projections in the livestock master plan was a significant reason why they chose Tanzania as one of the countries to focus on. So those are a few examples of perhaps how our focus on investments has contributed to attracting further investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Amos. One question for Neema, which was on from Paul Wagstaff on gender differences in terms of preferences on artificial insemination. I'm just looking for that question again. If you can see that question to you, wonder, yes. How much choice do farmers have in the traits offered through AI? Have you seen any differences in the traits that male and female dairy farmers are looking for? Any surprises in the traits that Tanzanian dairy farmers are looking for? That's a specific question for you.
Yes, thanks, David. Actually, there is not any difference, I must say, from the first results we have received. Most of the farmers, they just rely on what is available with the input businesses, because right now the AI, the semen is being sourced from one source, National Artificial Insemination Center. So whatever is there is what is being supplied. And when it comes to farmer preference, what they say, we want a breed which can ultimately give us, first of all, a female cow, but also with high yield. Women are the more particular about that, but across both male and female, they share the same sentiment. So right now, we haven't really tracked it so closely, but on the second sales period, because I'm really looking at the contribution of the Agresults to the genetic composition of the animals. This one I'll take it serious and start tracking it. Maybe Amos on HGG can be able to complement what I've shared, because at least they have quite a lot of experience on the project. Amos.
Amos, anything to add?
Sorry. I was just saying Neema said it well, so I don't have anything to add. Sorry.
Fine. Okay. Thank you, Amos. There are some other questions that came in, but they've been answered by Amos as he's going along. Questions on causality and again on scaling out. So I've tried to put those on the chat box, and we'll copy all of those. I'm going to. We said that this would last until 1:15 Irish time, 4:15 East African time. So I'm going to wrap it up there. This has been a really fascinating set of speakers and topic, and there's much more for us to return to. As I said, we would like to share this information a bit more, so we'll talk I'll talk to Patrice in IFIAD on that. This is certainly a region that we are doing much more, us, SFSI, our agencies, including Tiagas, but also our other agencies, including our Ministry of Agriculture and our other partners. And the dairy sector is a key one for us in East Africa. We have projects in Kenya. We're designing a project in Tanzania. We're working on the early stages in relation to Uganda. Our colleagues in Tiagas are working in Eritrea. And we believe there are linkages that we can create between those. And some of these topics have been very, very helpful and point to some of the key issues for stakeholders like ILRI, like the other key development partners, and like the national institutions like KALRO and their equivalents in the region. So there's lots of work to be done. I want to thank you all. I thank first of all our speakers, Dr. Amos Omore from ILRI, Neema Mrema from Land O'Lakes Venture 37 and the Agresults project, and David Mbugua from KALRO, our good colleague from there. Can I also say thank you to Patrice Lucid and Isabel McLaughlin for supporting us technically today. Without your help, we wouldn't be able to do it. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Thank you very much to everybody. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. And as I said, we will share further information, the information from and the questions and answers from today. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.